Teams at the bottom of the standings usually have little reason to be excited about the start of a new season, and when those teams have a questionable combination of young players and veterans, things get even worse. But what if that same team found a way to make it all work and came out of the gates looking completely different? A few weeks ago, no one would have thought the Cleveland Cavaliers would be good at the start of the 2020-21 season, and even now, most people would be cautious about saying something like that. But so far, the Cavs have been better than expected, and there's a chance they'll keep getting better. Beyond the play of a young and impressive core, and with the contributions of some of the newcomers, the team has had its best start in years. And while it's still too early to talk about making the playoffs, they believe they can surprise everyone this season. So, let's see where they're standing at the early stages of the season. When a team acquires a player that's capable of entering the GOAT debate, it usually means it'll be able to compete for a championship for a long time. While the Cavaliers eventually won a title in 2016, they had to deal with LeBron leaving the team not once, but twice. Both times resulted in a difficult era for the team. The first time around, they managed to acquire a few intriguing players thanks to an unprecedented streak in the draft lottery, but in the end, they were only able to make it back to the playoffs when James decided to return. This time, there won't be a superstar willing to join the team and try to save it from mediocrity, so it will be up to them to make it out of the bottom of the standings. And so far, the results haven't been good. Following LeBron's departure, the Cavaliers went from Eastern Conference champion to arguably the worst team in the East. In each of the last two seasons, they finished with 19 wins and were among the bottom of the league in most categories. However, the search for LeBron's successor began even before he signed with the Lakers, and while replacing a four-time MVP may be something near impossible to do, the team had faith it would be able to find its next franchise player sooner rather than later. The first player added to that new era was Colin Sexton, a shoot-first point guard with the potential of becoming the offensive leader of the team that was surrounded by many questions regarding his playmaking and defensive effort. He was followed in 2019 by Darius Garland, another talented guard whose fit with Sexton was questioned, given that both players had similar strengths and weaknesses. But unlike Colin, Darius struggled during his rookie season, raising the alarms on his potential as a building block for the future. Along the way, the team opened up for more opportunities for young players like Cedi Osman and Larry Nance Jr., while also adding a young talent like Kevin Porter Jr. and veterans like the returning Matthew Dellavedova. But as time went by, Cleveland didn't seem to make any improvements, and questions regarding the fit of the roster and the potential of Sexton and Garland kept coming around. Or at least that was the case until the team named J.B. Bickerstaff as its new coach. Bickerstaff joined the Cavaliers as an assistant and associate coach in 2019. However, he was promoted to the head coaching position following John Balin's resignation in February. At the moment, the team had a 14-40 record, and there were no reasons to believe things would start improving anytime soon. However, Bickerstaff managed to bring new energy to the team, and the Cavs were 5-6 before the suspensions of the season. And while that example might not have been large enough to draw any conclusions, it was one of their best stretches since 2018. And because of that, there was a legitimate doubt about whether the team could have kept playing that way if it wasn't because of the pandemic. But as the start of the next season got closer, most people thought it would be hard for the team to replicate that stretch and make any real improvements, especially considering there were a lot of ifs surrounding some of their best players like Sexton, Kevin Love, and Andre Drummond. Still, as the season got going, it started to look like the Cavaliers were not the same team they were during the last two seasons. They started by winning their first 3 games, and while each game was either against a mediocre team or a team playing without its best player, it was the first time since 2016 that Cleveland won its first 3 contests. Of course, the winning streak was snapped by the Knicks, and a few days after that, the Pacers beat the Cavs by 20 to put an end to 2020. But just when it seemed like the team would fall back to reality, Cleveland started 2021 by defeating a Hawks team that was tied for the best record in the East and was coming off an impressive win against Brooklyn. So, should we start thinking about the Cavs as a playoff contender? Well, the last time Cleveland made it to the playoffs without LeBron James was in 1998, and it's safe to say almost no one expected them to compete for a playoff spot for at least a couple of seasons. But as surprising as it may be, there are enough hints to believe their recent play may not be a fluke. The first and most evident change the team has displayed so far is in its defensive play. During the first 6 games of the season, the Cavs have had the 3rd best defensive rating of the league at 101.8. That's an incredible turnaround, considering they were second to last during last season and dead last the year before. What's most impressive is that none of their players are considered to be elite on the defensive end, but Bickerstaff has managed to get all of its players to buy into a new system that relies on playing a strong team defense, and that's been the difference. The new system has allowed newcomers like Drummond, JaVale McGee, and rookie Isaac Okoro to play to their strengths on the defensive end. But it has also pushed Sexton and Garland to put in a better effort on defense as well. And while we shouldn't expect any of the young guards to suddenly turn into all defensive-like players, there have already been a few sequences where they've shown their commitment to playing more physically on that end of the floor. But the best thing about it may be the fact that players are aware of the improvement that's taking place. For example, Sexton talked about how defense kept them into the game against the Knicks despite playing horribly on offense. He mentioned that in the past, the team would have lost by 20 points instead of keeping things close until the end. Drummond has also been encouraged by the new system and the way everyone has been playing so far. In fact, he's gone as far as to say he doesn't see a reason why he couldn't win Defensive Player of the Year. And while there's no way of telling whether that will happen, the confidence he and his teammates have shown in their ability to play good defense during the first weeks of the season has helped them enjoy a strong start. But defense can only take you so far. And if the Cavs have been playing better, it's also been because of the growth they've shown on offense. One of the areas where they've shown the biggest improvement has been on their passing. After finishing the last two seasons in the bottom 10 in assists per game, the Cavs have jumped into the top 10 in that category. In each of their first 3 games, the Cavaliers finished with at least 29 assists to go along with the win. And while that number has been lower in each of their last 3 contests, it's evident that Bickerstaff is trying to make everyone play for one another on each end of the floor. However, as much credit as Bickerstaff is due for the improvement the team has been making so far, it's safe to say Cleveland won't be in this position if it wasn't because of the growth of their young players. Sexton and Garland have each taken an important step forward in their development, and the result has been a dynamic backcourt that's capable of leading an offense while also putting in the effort on the other end of the court. Sexton has steadily been getting better since coming into the league in 2018, and while there's still a lot of room to improve, he's embraced the role of being an offensive threat that can go for 25 points on any given night. He started showing his potential in that role during the end of last season. In the last 15 games before the suspension of the season, he averaged 24.5 points per game on 50.6% shooting. Now, it seems like he's only going to keep getting better at scoring the ball. But the one that's shown the most improvement has been his backcourt mate. Though Garland's numbers during last season didn't look bad, he was at or near the bottom of the league in most efficiency stats. And while that wouldn't have mattered that much if he managed to play well, the truth is, he never looked comfortable on the court during his rookie year. He admitted that much by saying the meniscus injury he had suffered during his time in college was still on the back of his mind, and that his game was being affected because of it. But it seems like that's no longer the case. So far, Darius has been able to increase each of his averages while also putting together a few impressive performances, including a 21-point, 12-assist performance against Detroit. Those games have helped him to prove he belongs in the league and is capable of being successful along with Sexton. The young backcourt has been complemented by Drummond, who's also had a few impressive outings during the first few weeks of the season and has repeatedly talked about how excited he is about being in Cleveland. But what's most surprising is that the best might still be to come. Despite how well they've performed so far, the Cavs have not played a single game at full health. Love has been dealing with an injury and will remain out for a few more weeks. Okoro has also been rolled out for a few games due to health protocols. Porter Jr. and Della Vedova have not made their debuts yet. So, while it may be early to assume the Cavs will keep playing this good during the rest of the season, there are enough reasons to think they may be able to develop a culture that allows them to enjoy sustainable success in the future. They have a lot of talented pieces, and while none of them seem to stand out at first, it looks like Coach Bickerstaff has found a way to make them all work together. And if things keep going like this, we may have to start taking Cleveland more seriously sooner rather than later. But now, do you believe the Cavs will keep playing well throughout a full season? Or is it only a matter of time before opposing teams start to figure them out? Let us know in the comments. We hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content. We are Courtside.